All right, I hope everybody's buckled in because this one's going to be interesting. However, as I have convinced myself, if anybody can pull off the shenanigery I'm about to do, it's going to be me. This is going to be a pair of VRs combined. And I think because of the way they're structured and what I'm plotting, I can do them both. I'm going to start off real quick, just giving you the overview of what's going on. The first is for a channel I recently discovered through seeing Three Good Nerds and then the autograph fisherman John Burgess doing VRs for him. It's Stooks Baseball Cards and Curiosities, and for his 100 sub giveaway, he is looking for a VR in which you display your hometown heroes, and I like that. And there's going to be some because living in Rochester or just outside of Rochester now. I was actually born and raised outside of Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh is a hotbed for professional sports, so I had to really narrow it down. But there's going to be some ties into other channels, which brings me to the second VR, the 200 sub / 2 year giveaway for Philtastic Comics and Art, in which he asks for your top 3 non comic book related channels. And there's 3 really good channels that I'm going to be talking about when I go through some of these cards. But links to Stooks, Baseball Cards and Curiosities, and Philtastic Comics and Art, plus my 3 shoutouts are going to be below. But on the note of Phil, he does a live show every Saturday at 11 o'clock Eastern, right after Breakfast with Brian and Brian LCS, called what is it? I always blank. It's last week today. Every time I look at it, it kind of throws me for a minor loop. But he goes live Saturday at 11 Eastern, so check him out this week. Actually, it'll be tomorrow because this is going up Friday. Now, we begin. I wanted to narrow down the hometown hero thing a bit to because people just coming from Pittsburgh is immense. So I wanted to stick with people that actually went to high school or at least graduated from high school in the Pittsburgh area, because my hometown, which is a small town outside Pittsburgh called Verona, did not really have anybody of note athletic-wise come out of it. My high school, same way. There were only 3 people I can think of, actually, that ever made the professional ranks in a sport. But we are going to soldier on because there's a lot of things. We're going to start off, actually, with baseball. There are a couple baseball players that came out of the Pittsburgh area and or high school, and one of them I'm going to kind of cheat, but I'm okay with it. And this is going to couple off with the very first shout out for Philtastic, and that would be the amazing community angel, Julie Farnham, pulling all kinds of fire, keeper of the Land Krakens, and one of the biggest hearts you're going to run across on YouTube. Why I bring her up is because of this gentleman right here, Alex Kirilloff, for the Minnesota Twins. Actually, from Pittsburgh, went to Plum High School. Interesting side stories about Plum. That is the same high school that Pat McAfee went to, though I don't have a card for him. And a high school we played against in football. As a 2-year starter in 20 games, we had a 2-18 record. Both wins were 1 year apart, the very last game against the vaunted Plum Mustangs. But we move on. So shout out Julie Farnham, link to her down below. Next, we have this gentleman right here, Ian Happ. Excuse me, from Mount Lebanon High School, right outside Pittsburgh. We went against them in track and field, not football. Now this one, the Flying Dutchman, Honus Wagner, he was from what was then known as Chartiersboro, but is now called Carnegie. Actually, it's where the same town that Mike Ditka grew up in, or was born in, but later moved. And the last baseball one, and this is actually the second shout out, it's going to be to Adam's Card Closet. You talk about one of the greatest collections of Chipper Jones and just beautiful looking cards. You must go to Adam's Card Closet. A fine human being, and one of the driving forces behind the Card Crew movement. And this card actually I picked up in an auction from him. It is a Josh Gibson. Weirdly, not from Pittsburgh, from Georgia originally, but played all but a couple years of his career in baseball in the Pittsburgh area with the Pittsburgh Crawfords and the Homestead Grays in the Negro Leagues. In fact, he is buried in Allegheny National Cemetery in Lawrenceville, Pennsylvania. He passed away, I think, in 1947. He died, let me double check that real quick. Died in 1947 and sadly was in an unmarked grave until 1975, but there is a headstone for him now. And weirdly, this says Kansas City Monarchs. He never played for the Kansas City Monarchs, but I think that just adds to it and just makes it even cooler. My apologies. We had a minor technical snafu. I went to hit pause because I realized I forgot something, ended up hitting stop. But we will soldier on. We're going to move to football. We're going to kind of blow through these a little quick because I don't want to keep you guys too long, but we got, this gentleman right here from the Pittsburgh area, Dan Marino, went to Central Catholic High School, who we played against when I was playing football. And actually, to throw back to Julie Farnham, this might be a name that you remember or not. Let me know. It was a gentleman. He was a 7th-round draft pick in 2004 for the Vikings, played there for 7 years as a tight end, Jeff Dugan. If you remember that name, I played against him in high school. He was a defensive end and a tight end. And if I recall correctly, though granted it was 20-some years ago, I got the better end of the stick, but he had a 7-year NFL career. So sadly, minor joke on me on that one. But I'll always have that. Other guys we got this guy, Jim Kelly, actually born in Pittsburgh, but grew up about 60 miles away in East Brady, but still counts Pittsburgh. And these are just people I have cards for. Joe Montana, Ringgold High School. We would go on to play against them after I graduated. Mike Ditka, I mentioned him before. He, I think, was born in Carnegie and grew up in Aliquippa, Pennsylvania, which, who else was from Aliquippa? I have a list here. There was somebody, another guy from Aliquippa as well. This gentleman here, Mr. Tony Dorsett. I think also went to the University of Pittsburgh. I think always said one of the things he wished he could have done was play for the Steelers. Moving into the actual city, Taylor Allardyce High School produced Curtis Martin here, Hall of Famer, just like several of these guys. The current Hall of Famer, another one, Jason Taylor. He went to Woodland Hills High School, which I think is the same place that Rob Gronkowski spent his final year of high school in. I can't recall, but then we turn to where most of my family went real quick, Penn Hills High School. A lot of big names came out of there. This guy right here, Aaron Donald, Penn Hills High School. Thank God I'm as old as I am, or I would have had to try to play against him. Other guys I don't have cards for, LeVar Arrington. I was 1 year too young for him. Thank you. George Carl, the basketball coach. He went to Penn Hills. Also, this gentleman, I don't have any cards for him, but I was lucky enough to meet him back in 1995 at the Johnny Majors football camp at the University of Pittsburgh, Mr. Bill Fralick, and that leads me to my third shout-out because Bill Fralick played a long time for the Atlanta Falcons, so shout-out to the other half, the better half, the more powerful half of Zach Squared, Zach Sports Cards and Collectibles. I actually just finished up watching his 3-pack Thursday. On Thursday nights, he streams 3-pack opening and does a lot of shout-outs, and he's pulling some fire. Pulled himself a Stetson Bennett Georgia Bulldogs. Go Dogs! And big fan of his. Great guy in the community. Make sure you check him out along with all the other channels. And actually, weirdly, we even had some hockey players. The one I have a card for, John Gibson here. He went to Baldwin High School. We went against them in track and field. Now, to close it out very quickly and very unusually, I mentioned my high school had 3 people that went into the professional sports ranks. That would be Rick Strom. He was played for the Steelers mostly, I think, in the late 80s and early 90s, more of a kind of a backup role quarterback. in the NFL. He came out of my high school. Weirdly, one guy that he graduated the year after me had a cup of coffee in the NHL. I don't have a card for him, unfortunately, but his name was Bill Thomas. I know, completely generic name, but if on Wikipedia, he's Bill Thomas, I think ice hockey player, the one from Pittsburgh. He graduated, like I say, in 2001, so the year after me. Cup of coffee in the NHL, played for the Penguins, played for the Coyotes, had a longer minor league and international career. I think actually just retired recently, maybe a year or so ago. He'd been playing over in Japan. And the third and final one is a last name that some people might know. This gentleman right here, Leo Wisniewski. He is the older brother of the Raiders offensive lineman and one of their best offensive linemen of more recent years, Steve Wisniewski, and also the father of, I think, recently retired offensive lineman, has a couple Super Bowls with the Chiefs, Stefan Wisniewski. But Leo graduated from my high school and had himself a little short career with the Baltimore Colts. And you're wondering, why is this not sleeved? Because this one is going out as a TTM very soon. So that's going to wrap up this dual VR mania madness for the combination of Stooks baseball cards and curiosities and Philtastic comics and art. Also, please make sure to check out their channels down below and a channel and all the channels from my shout-outs, Julie Farnham, Zach Sports Cards and Collectibles, and Adam's Card Closet. We are going to end with not only my hometown hero, but my Olympic hero as well. It's true. It's true. Kurt Angle, one of the greatest wrestlers of all time from Pittsburgh. Great human being. It's true. And to close it off, to really boost Pittsburgh, we also had Michael Keaton and the Goldblum. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time.